Kids who didn't get a reward spent 17% of the next few days drawing. The kids who did get a reward, they spent 8% of their time drawing. In other words, the presence of the extrinsic motivator reduced the intrinsic motivation. And that actually happens with game design and gamification as well. So one of the reasons, actually the core reason why gamification didn't work is simply giving your users a reward for something can reduce the intrinsic motivation for them to do that thing. And to actually build things that feel like a game, we actually have to go into the theory of game design, like what is a game, what is play, what is fun, and then build your product around that. And that's something that we did deeply with Superhuman, now Superhuman Mail.
I'm curious, what are some examples of game design thoughts that go into the core loop, let's call it, of email, which is the most unfun thing ever?
Yeah, totally. I was like, how do I make the, and I didn't answer your previous question about why productivity, because it was the least fun thing in my life.
Right.
And I was like, how can I make this the most fun thing? Over the years, I came up with multiple principles of game design, around 15 to 20, depending on the day. But they draw upon different areas like psychology and mathematics and storytelling and interaction design and so on. The principles cover areas like goals, emotions, toys, controls, and flow. Those are the top 5 areas I often think about when it comes to how do we make something feel like a game. And I'll give you a specific example, perhaps in the context of toys. So what is a toy and how is it different to a game? The way I would summarize it is actually linguistically. You play with a toy, but you play the game, right? A ball is a toy, but football is a game. And you can actually use this when you're building products. It turns out that the best products are made with toys because then, the best games, I should say, are made with toys because then the games are fun on multiple levels, the level of the toy and the level of the game itself. And an example from Superhuman would be our time autocompleter. This is what happens when you hit H to set a reminder on an email. And I noticed this in onboardings, and we ended up deliberately designing for this, but people would start to play with this toy. Once they'd understood how it worked, they'd start to play with it. So if you haven't seen this, you basically hit H, you type in when you want the email to come back, and then it sets a reminder. And so if you type in 2D, it's 2 days, 3MO is 3 months, and so on. And when people figure out how it works, they start trying to break it. So I saw people type in 10-10-10-10-10, what does that do? Oh, that's October the 10th at 10:10 p.m. Or 222, well, that's February the 2nd, 2022, or whatever it was. And then people start trying to type in random things like, oh, I wonder if it will handle in a fortnight and a day, and it does. And I even had one user type in never, never bring this email back. And we had a little funny thing over on the right-hand side where we have an interpretation of what you typed in ASCII characters. And we had the shrug emoji guy when you typed in never. It's little things like that which are fun and the experience of a toy create these little localized moments of delight. And if you build lots of these in conjunction with each other, you now have a collection of toys. That by itself is not a game. Fareed mentioned the word loop. There's the idea of the game loop. You need other things as well, but that's an example of a toy-like experience. And so as you're thinking about your own features, I would ask yourself questions like the following. Is this particular feature toy-like? Is it fun just to poke? Does it have what we game designers would call a squishy affordance? Can you bend it in an analog way and it will react back to you? What's a good example of that? Oh, the jump in Mario. In fact, this is so intuitive, most people don't even realize this happens until I point this out. Let's say you're running in Mario and you hit the A button to jump and you're flying through the air. You're holding down right. When you hold down left, what happens? You go left. That's completely aphysical, right? So you're flying, you're jumping, and you hold down left and you suddenly start steering left to avoid presumably the big chasm that you just found. But it's fun. That's an example of a squishy affordance that the control system has given you, and controls are a whole other thing. So identify these squishy affordances, identify these areas where it can respond in an analog way, and ask yourself the question, is it encouraging playful exploration? Because if you can say yes to those things, you've made a toy and you're well on your way to making a game.